One Thing a Smart Meetings podcast, where we talk to amazing leaders about the things that made all the difference in their lives and careers. We are live here at IMEX America with Mike Dominguez, President and CEO of Alhi. And we've just been talking about how all of the uncertainty that is going on in the world is having some very real impacts on events.
Yes.
How do you define what the impact is?
Well, I think the impacts were very diverse. And I think that's the important part. One of the words we kept hearing around the table was bifurcated or fragmented. And I think that's important for people to know. Like, nothing's in one bucket. So there are parts of our industry that are doing really well. There are parts that are struggling. There are certain airlines doing really well. Certain airlines, not so much. I think it's really hard to put everything into one summary. Some of the things coming up, we still have political headwinds, a lot of changes in policy, happens with a new administration, happening a little faster with this administration. So there's still a little bit of this uncertainty. But the way I've been phrasing it is, we started the year very uncertain, and I said, now it's kind of partly cloudy. I see a little bit of clouds, but I can see a little bit of sunshine. We at least know, and the reason that matters, I can see the road. I actually can see the road. Every now and then there may be some rain, but I can at least see the road in front of us. And I think that should give everybody a little bit of hope. Back half of the year, it's pretty universal. The back half, fourth quarter of this year is going to be really strong for our industry. And everybody is talking about 26 being either a record-breaking or a very impactful year. And I think that should give everybody a little bit of optimism moving into the year. Government business still going to be very sporadic. It's still going to be something that is pulled down just a bit. We have to expect that. So you heard me say, one of my favorite quotes is, deal with the world the way it is, not the way you want it to be. And that was John Chambers.
That's hard for a planner.
It is, but it's what we have to accept. I can't change what the road looks like right now. I can only deal with it. So yes, if I'm in the government business, I need to understand this is what I am dealing with. How do I deal with it the best I can at the moment with what I know? We sometimes fight it. Like, I don't want to believe this is true. This is where we're at. And it's not going to change whether I like it or not. It's the reality of what I have to do. And I think as leaders, it's incumbent upon us to figure out, what does the new environment look like? You heard around the table, nimble. Being nimble.
Flexible.
And we say those words, but many people don't really live by them. Being nimble is very unique. To be able to say, okay, here is a new situation. It doesn't matter whether I like it or not. I just need to deal with the new situation. I think that's still going to be really relevant to us moving forward across the board. You heard me talk about the sovereign debt issue around the globe is a concern of mine. It's been a concern here in the United States when we have a debt that's $38 trillion and our interest payments alone are $1 trillion. You know, we used to have this saying, if you say it out loud and it sounds really silly, we should probably quit doing it. I go, so let me say this out loud. The current budget that we just ended, we don't have one. That's why we're in a government shutdown. But the budget that had just ended was running a $1.8 trillion deficit. We have a $1 trillion interest payment, which means I'm borrowing $1 trillion to pay the $1 trillion in interest on all the money I've borrowed before.
That needs to be said out loud.
When you say it out loud, that's silly and we need to stop doing it. And I don't have the answers. I just know it's what everybody is struggling with. I mentioned today that, in France, the latest leader stepped down after 27 days. They're having the same issue. They don't know how to finance the debt.
It's global.
It's a global issue. The U.S. leads it, but we're the largest economy, so we would lead it. But outside of it, I saw a stat recently. We're paying $3 trillion in interest payments on sovereign debt around the world.
Wow.
It's unsustainable long term, but that means we have a lot to work out. And you heard me say this, JT, when we talked last year, and I don't know if enough people really paid attention. 40 countries, 60% of the world GDP had an election last year. Everything in Europe, for instance, every modern democracy has a brand new administration, a brand new leader. So we have all of this. We have basically a global trade reset across the globe with all new leaders across the globe. This is interesting. And it's not that everybody knew each other. It's not that, hey, we can work a deal out because everybody knows each other. It's a lot of people getting to know each other.
It's the zeitgeist of people wanting change,
Very
right?
much so. And And it's happening more and more. Even in the latest elections around the world, you're seeing a lot of change. That change is going to bring change, and that's going to bring a little bit of uncertainty. And my point is, people just need to get used to it. It's going to be a little uncertain, and it'll land where it lands. And you heard it said around the table, and I loved it, is we just need to know what the rules are. And once we know the rules, we can move forward.
That's what every planner wants, right?
Just tell us what the rules are, and then let's move. I think one thing we did not talk about at the table that I was going to bring up was just the most precious asset everybody has. And you heard sometimes that, maybe we need to go revamp some things and we want to create some things. It's time. Everybody has time poverty right now.
Right.
We just don't.
Time and energy.
Yeah. Well, and I think the one thing we don't do is figure out what is necessary and what isn't, and really trying to protect our time. Mm-hmm. And that's a big piece to it. So, when I do leadership conversations in the industry, I always tell people, I said, if I was to survey you right now and asked you what's your greatest resource, I promise you would all say your teams. It's my people, it's my team. And then I just add one more statement. I said, so let me ask you a question. Does your time reflect that statement? Mm-hmm. Are you spending more people with your time, or spending more time with your people than you are on emails or you are in meetings? And just because you're invited to a meeting, JT, doesn't mean you need to go. We need to choose which meetings do I need to be in? Is it pertinent? And, in my past life here, we're sitting at, in Las Vegas, but in my past life here, when at certain meetings I got invited to, I'd ask my boss, is it necessary I'm there? Like, it really doesn't relate to me. I know I was invited, you'll fill me in, but do you really need me there? And he'd actually tell me if he needed me because he needed my input or something, or no, you don't need to be there. And I'm like,
asking that question is so powerful.
And it's also a maturity piece, because you have to be mature enough to know that I don't have FOMO. I don't feel like I'm missing something because I'm not in a meeting that I was invited to, if it was just going to waste my time. And waste is the wrong word. If it wasn't going to be a good use of my time.
Highest and best use.
Yeah, and I just don't think people take the time to do that. It's this balance, and it takes a great deal of maturity and discipline. And I think discipline is sometimes something we have to work on as an industry. And discipline just means getting really good at the habit. I don't mean that people are undisciplined,
and intentional.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but discipline means practice, and if you continue to practice, then it becomes something that it's a non-negotiable. This is what I'm going to protect at all times. And you have to figure out what that is. I have my own thing. Like when I drive to work every day, I'm listening to CNBC, and I'm not on emails. I'm not on work calls. It's a way to get my mind into the game. But it's also time. Yeah. But it's very freeing because, me, I'm interested in the markets, and I'm interested in hearing some CEO talk about an industry, but it's not stressful thought for my brain. It's very invigorating for me to hear that, but I need that. And I do the same going home. I don't jump in my car and now take a business call, because that allows me to wind down by the time I get home, so that I'm now in mental home state. I'm no longer in business state. It actually blocks it off for me. I think everybody needs to figure that out. And that's me being disciplined with my time. I'll do personal phone calls, on that time frame, but they are personal, not anything that's really trying to be business related, although my boss for some reason always tends to call me at 5:00, and he's East Coaster, and it's on my way home. But he never bothers me in any bad way. I love talking to him, but it's always right at that 5:00 time. But it's kind of my own discipline and trying to block out time and what that looks like.
And to do that for your team as well.
Exactly.
We talked about in times of this uncertainty and change, with all the AI coming in, that's when they need the most. They need investment in their development. They need consoling. They need support.
And they need rules.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we're afraid to give people rules, and you realize people will thank you if they know what the ground rules are. And I think we've gotten so free at times that we forget people actually like guardrails. Mm-hmm. Not restrictive guardrails, but guardrails to know when you hit the guardrail, let me know and I can help. But at least to this point, all free. Get to do what you want. We're learning that with AI. When we talk about AI, the one thing that I continue to work with my head of teams is literally, what are our rules of engagement? And everybody wants to jump on ChatGPT, but great, that gets scraped. And unless you're going to be in a protected environment, it's not what you should be doing as an organization. It doesn't mean we don't want to use ChatGPT, but what does that enterprise model look like? How do we utilize it? What are the rules? That's kind of the balance and I think everybody's, kind of going through that. And I love something that was said here is you need to ask what you're solving for. We all talk about AI. Unless you know what you're solving for, AI has no relevance.
You're not going to make the right choice.
No, you just need to know what you're solving for. And, and I continue to tell planners, don't feel obligated to go all in, but do feel obligated to start experimenting and start learning and start understanding and find
an open mind.
Very much so. And to find the people that can help you, because it is about prompting if you're going to utilize AI, right? And I'll tell you a personal story recently. My CFO, she has a reconciliation. We bought a marketing company a year and a half ago. Her reconciliation, because of the number of the jobs they do, is quite time consuming, because she has to build that out one by over 100 jobs in action at any time. So she has to build out an Excel spreadsheet that literally carries every job so that she can see what the reconciliation looks like. She actually used ChatGPT. She actually did some really great prompting. She had to do it 2 or 3 different times, and she was able to show me the 100-tabbed Excel spreadsheet that was built by ChatGPT in literally about 15 minutes. Wow. That used to take her days to put together.
But you have to be smart enough to ask the right questions.
Correct. Correct. But that's a great use of it, because now her time is being spent on the reconciliation, not building it.
Yeah.
She's looking job by job, and she's able to do that very quickly versus having to build all this out. That's where I get excited that we are going to make some really great advancements around our use of time, so that our time can be spent thinking, which I went back to time poverty. I think AI is going to be able to solve a little bit of our time poverty and allow us to think. And then we talked about, well, there's a challenge that people aren't strategic. We need time to be strategic. You need time to think. I don't think we have that time, and I think that's where AI can help us.
That would be so helpful. We talked a lot about the accounting term of VUCA, right? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And the complexity part is something that I think you were really good at understanding. We talked about the fact that we are here in Las Vegas. Yeah. Las Vegas, everyone has said, is having, no one wants to come because it's too popular. It was packed at the airport last night when I got in. What's happening in Vegas? What's the complexity there?
The complexity is the summer was a weak summer, but the summer was weak everywhere. It's just Vegas stands out. And you look at, Vegas, what we've heard, Vegas had a hard July, but July is a soft meetings month, which means it was all leisure. And there wasn't enough of the discretionary leisure. I think something Vegas, or people forget about Vegas, out of 110,000 rooms in the destination, 70% of them are in the value category, not luxury. And we talked about the bifurcation because what you did here is, even in July and all of that, the Wynns of the world, the Bellagios of the world, the Arias of the world, they did well.
Yeah.
And they were setting records in certain hotels. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was with the value customer. And we saw it in all data. There's one piece of data that CBRE does that I really like, and it's Google searches by brand name of hotels. And what you saw starting in February and March, that declined by almost 9%. That's our summer. We lost the summer because people weren't looking. Everybody was nervous. And you heard me say there was this great pause. I call it the great pause. And the pause was between April and basically July, August. What we saw starting in July is that number is up, and now it's up almost 7% from where it was last year. That's why everybody's expecting the back half of the year to rock, because that means people are searching to travel. And I think the pause is over in that regard. And you did hear me say, I do think there's been a large transition of population around the country to the heartland of the U.S. and to the southeast of the U.S. And I don't know if we've done enough research, because there has been a large population out of California, even if new people were coming into California. The part that was out of California, these were people that traditionally maybe went to Vegas 3 or 4 times. It's a drive market in the summer. How many of those people have left living somewhere else around the country? And it's not that they are not coming, but maybe they're coming twice instead of 4 times. And JT, we didn't talk about this, my little aha moment around international, there's a couple of things. You heard about Canada, and we talked about Canada today. Yes, I know there's part of it that's this political conversation in optics. Canada has the largest recession in the world right now. 2 quarters of declining GDP of right at 2%. 63% of their population thinks the economic conditions are getting worse, not better. How much of this is economic driven? Because their economy is not really
and their dollar just doesn't buy as much as
that's kind of my point. I do know some of this is optics, but I think it's too convenient that we're not looking at there's some underlying root causes. Because when I looked at other international travel, Germany was down 10%. Germany's been in recession for 18 months. But Italy and Spain, Italy was up 8%. Spain was up 6% in travel to the US. Guess whose economies are the best in Europe right now? Spain and Italy. So I do think sometimes we overthink things to say economy still drives things. People that have good jobs and good prospects and feel good about the economy, they spend. And I think there's a lot of that because even on our international travel, it's a little bit bifurcated once again, because there's certain areas that are down and there's certain areas that are. Argentina is up the largest number of any country, but their economy has started to recover. So that is something that you see in the numbers. But my aha moment was we're expecting 4.5 million plus people visiting with World Cup next year. Here was my aha. So let's say I'm coming from Europe. I'm a family of 4. I'm bringing my kids. We're coming down. We're going to go to World Cup. And we know the expectation is they're going to be here 2.5 weeks. They're going to maybe spend a week at World Cup. They're going to go visit the United States. If that is me and I'm that traveler, am I coming to the U.S. this summer? When next year? I'm spending the big bang and we're doing the big trip. And the reason it was an aha for me is the one question we never ask is, are you coming to World Cup? And if the answer is yes, has it changed your travel patterns this summer?
Before or after?
Yes, we do the after. We always measure after. We never do the before. And the reason it kind of stuck with me, if you look at what happened in Europe this summer, it was all regional. It was Italy going to France, and it was France going to Spain. They stayed regionally. But how much of that is because they're coming to World Cup next year? And that's going to be their big U.S. trip. And I asked somebody at our U.S. travel board meeting, and they actually said, hell, I wouldn't be going to Europe if I was going to World Cup next year. I wouldn't go this summer if that's where I know I'm going next summer, because you're not going just for the event. You're going to actually visit the country. All the data shows us that. So that was kind of my aha moment. Like, so how much of that? I just like to say there's a lot of noise in our numbers. And I think we become so definitive on the why. I don't know the why. I think it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
It's complex.
It's a recipe. There's a little bit of an ingredient of different pieces. And for us to try to put it into a blanket, I think we're kind of misleading ourselves. And then we're not going to pay attention to the sign when it moves. So.
And then a lot of that is all leisure, right? And
Absolutely.
So to think about like all the investments that are being made for FIFA, for Super Bowls, all of that can be used for events post meeting.
I always tell everybody the fact that we have a commission that is put together for the World Cup and for the Olympics coming. And the fact that they're headed by the president and the vice president to make sure we move all mountains that are in there for this experience. I said, look, if there's any positive with President Trump, he is a marketer and he's a sports fan. So we're going to get a lot of benefits out of everything they do to market the Olympics and FIFA and any of the investment they make in the travel ecosystem. It's a benefit for all of us down the road. And that's where I'm excited, because there's going to be a lot of investment. Timing's actually good. And we talked a little bit about Brand USA and them losing a lot of their funding this year. There is a part of me that says if there's any year you're going to lose it, not that we wanted to, but isn't it when we're going to promote the heck out of the United States because World Cup's here, and then the United States is going to be promoted like crazy because of the Olympics? If there's any time that it can maybe not kill us, to me, that all that money's been taken away, is the fact that we're going to get a lot of tailwinds, literally, out of FIFA and out of the Olympics. And it's not that I hope it comes back, and I know U.S. travel is fighting hard to get it back. I'm not saying we shouldn't get it back. My point is, when I'm trying to look at any silver lining, the timing of losing it.
We're dealing with the situation we have, not the one we wish we had.
Exactly. And if we're going to be stuck with this, I think the timing couldn't have been better, because because we're at least going to get a lot of advertising and a lot of promotion around the world just because of where these world events are going to be happening.
Earned media.
Exactly.
So you mentioned a little bit about creating mental space for yourself with all of these dots that you connect.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the one thing you do that helps you to see that big perspective picture?
You know what I really do is I read a lot of different mediums across the board, and I think that's important because that does help me. Mm-hmm. And what I tend to do, I tend to read with curiosity. And I think if people want to connect the dots, they need to do that. Because when I read something and then I see a data point that I didn't know, then I go down a rabbit hole. And I really start going to research and try to research at different angles. And what that usually does is lead me to something else around the globe. And that's where I think I'm able to connect some of those dots. The other thing is, JT, it's that I sleep really well. And, when people say what keeps you up at night, my answer is nothing. I have my Aura ring. My wife freaks out that my latency is like 3 minutes. I'm done. She says, as soon as my head hits the pillow, I am gone. My deep sleep's always good. It may not be long. I don't sleep long because I really don't get a lot of sleep, but I sleep deep and my REM sleep's good and all of that. The reason that I say that is when my mind is clear like that, a lot of it comes to me when I'm sleeping, not because I'm dreaming. And my CFO and I just had this conversation, but it's like I see clarity sometimes when I'm sleeping. And I think it's because my mind is clear, my mind is resting. Because when you're in that deep sleep, you don't have a lot of things going through your head. And I sometimes will wake up with great clarity on an idea or a concept that sometimes makes me go research more. But I wake up with that. And I would tell people to make sure they pay attention to that. And I thought I was kind of alone in that. And my CFO's like, same way. It's her. Sometimes she wakes up and she just sees it. And I said, and I think it's because it's one of the few times that your mind's not busy. So if you want to really get good at it, try to find the time or try to find ways to make your mind not busy. How do you just kind of check out? And to me, it's sitting in the backyard and just not doing it. I like music and I turn music on and I'm just sitting there and listening and not doing anything. And don't be on your device. Don't do all of that. But we tend to go sit outside. We have to take our device with us so we can start scrolling instead of, why don't we look at the stars and, look at the clouds, or in my case, try to fight off the mosquitoes that are eating me alive. But
So read widely, create space, and be curious.
Without a doubt. Be curious is something I just spoke about at the Women's Leadership Conference here in Vegas. But it was a networking presentation they asked me to talk on. And I also said it applies to leadership, it applies to networking, but we need to have conversations with curiosity. We need to be able to, and you do this very well because you ask, I always say you're a walking question mark. And take that as the compliment it's meant to be, because not many people are. And that's where you can really get deep into people and what makes them tick. And I think I've told you this, I have every twice a year, 30-minute conversation with every single employee. And I have 140 employees. Wow. Every single one of them. But that conversation is not about business. It's about their lives. And it's me being curious. And I find out one of my global sales associates, she has 25 chickens. And I never knew eggs could be blue. And she taught me that.
Oh my goodness.
But you don't get to know that unless you have these conversations. And I just had a conversation last week. And, one of my GSAs, her husband's a firefighter and she has her 2 kids. But she's telling me about the firefighter season has been good this year, as far as wildfires, and they're in California. But you don't even think about it. Like, what's her nervousness? Her nervousness is
every day.
If there's a fire, and that becomes very nerve-wracking in that side. So I think that curiosity makes you better as a leader. It makes you better as a networker. It just makes you better as a person.
Absolutely. Well, I love this conversation with you. It will hold me over until January when we have our annual How Did Mike Get the Trends Right conversation. Look for that on the
I just want to say I've been pretty good the last few years.
You have been very good. Yeah.
I've been pretty spot on overall. And I will tell you, it wasn't in January, but it was in March. My first speech was in April, right after Liberation Day, and the markets had crashed, and everybody literally it's 2 weeks after this. And my message from stage is, everybody just needs to breathe. It's going to be okay. And I wasn't just trying to make them feel better. I truly believed this was just shock because we were trying to figure out, oh my God, he was serious. And what does this all mean? And then the markets came back because we realized, okay, it didn't mean what we thought it would mean. And we've started to go through that. One little trend line that we did not talk about. All this craziness with 30% tariffs here, 40% tariffs here, our effective tariff rate through July is 10%.
Really?
And it's that look that I'm trying to explain to people. This is why we haven't seen it in inflation. This is why you're not going to see it in inflation. And by the way, the dollar has devalued by 10%. So anybody that's international, it's a wash. That's why their earnings are staying consistent, because they're getting the tailwind of a softer dollar at the same time. But we're not talking about that enough, but I think that's fascinating. I think it grew to 12%, the estimation, through August. But what you forget is, like Canada, when they threw 100% tariff on Canadian products, that's only on 10% of trade with Canada. 90% of their trade has no tariffs because of the other agreement we have with them. That agreement's not being touched.
Changing
But the only thing changing is the 10%. And that's what's happening with every one of these. There's so many carve-outs that the big number is not the true number when it's all said and done. And that's where I was telling everybody, just breathe. Breathe. Because you know me, I'm a math guy. And I'm like, the math is saying it's going to be fine. We're going to be okay.
The complexity.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for doing that for us. And thank you for being on the What One Thing podcast. And we so look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you as always, JT. Appreciate you.
So welcome back to the What One Thing podcast, where we ask vet community leaders what made all the difference in their lives and careers. We are here at IMEX America with the fabulous Tracy Judge. She is founder and CEO of Soundings. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, JT. I'm so excited to be here with you.
We're going to have fun. So I need to know, were you born an entrepreneur? Like when you were in kindergarten, did you line everyone up and make sure that they had the right volunteer roles at field day?
I had a lot of siblings, so I was used to lining all of my siblings up in a row to get them out of the house, and all sisters that needed perfect bows and matching outfits before we could leave. So
how many sisters, and younger or older?
4 younger sisters.
4 younger sisters.
Yes.
There are 4 little Tracys out there?
Yeah, there's 4. The oldest is 6 years younger than me, and then they're all a year apart, basically. So there was 4 of them in 5 years.
You were trained from a very young age.
Yes.
This explains a lot.
It does. It explains a whole lot.
And then how did you come to your own? How did you end up being an entrepreneur?
I think I always had it in me, and I focused a lot on strengths. And when I looked at my Clifton strengths, my number 1 is individualization, which is seeing others, the individual qualities in others. And then number 2 is command, which probably is very much rooted in childhood. But then I have all strategic strengths. So futuristic, ideation, and strategic are my top. So when I looked at that profile when I was in my last job, everyone always thought I would be an entrepreneur. People that knew me well knew at some point I would have my own business. But when I saw that, it really made me see, you actually do have the profile of an entrepreneur. And interestingly, my number 1 strength is individualization, seeing the unique qualities in others. And what we do at Soundings is just that. We look at the experience and strengths and personalities of mostly freelancers, and then pair them with work and our customers.
And you helped so many people not only get through COVID, but learn how to thrive and grow during that time. And now you have many parts of Soundings. Talk about how the company itself evolved.
It's a very interesting story. So when we started right before COVID, and obviously COVID happened, that changed a lot, and the freelance workforce didn't have anywhere to plug in because there was no companies. So we started in March having webinars and just bringing people together, and the community kept growing and growing. And then as layoffs started happening, more people from all areas of the industry started joining. So we had all of this talent, and I was on a phone call with Tony Lorenz, who was a mentor of mine, and he was talking about a company that really needed, so they are going to have to stop taking business because they don't have enough people to operate virtual events. I said, well, I have people. He said, you do? I said, they don't know virtual events, but they know events, but nobody else, only 5% of our industry knows virtual. So we partnered with different companies in the industry, notified CVET and some others, and helped reskill talent and put talent back to work for virtual. And what's super interesting about this now is that was what created the Soundings Thrive talent community, but where we provide education, and we don't train directly, but we connect them with different training opportunities, help find them coaching as well. But the interesting piece is now with AI, we're kind of in that same space again, where it's looking at, okay, we need to reskill a workforce, and what does that mean, and what does that look like with AI, and how do we create these types of partnerships and paths to reskill an industry again?
You were such a lifeline, and now you still are, right? And as you look at the job market, is that AI taking their jobs? Is it creating more opportunities? Is it changing the way that they work? If I needed to reskill myself, what advice would you give me?
Yeah, so we're releasing a new white paper this week, which was the result of the study we did on how AI is impacting the workforce, and that was from the Q3 study. So we'll release those findings, but what was really interesting in these findings was that a lot of the leaders said we're actually not letting go of people, but we are investing in reskilling. So the amount of companies that are investing in reskilling and upskilling continues to increase, but as of now, they're not planning to lay off. I think more of what we'll see and what we see in other industries that are ahead of us, that except tech, which is a totally different beast because there's a lot of layoffs in tech because of AI, but in most industries, it's people aren't backfilling, right? So we learn how to do things better and faster with AI. So I think when people leave roles, companies are going to start thinking twice about if they're going to fill them, which is positive. This all is very positive for the events business, because I think there's a lot of fear that people's jobs are going to be taken, right? But what you do need to think about is your job, right now it's saying likely won't be taken, or your job won't go away, but as people leave their roles, less jobs may be available for the future. And you really need to start thinking about what are the skills of the future that are going to be needed, and across all industries, and then specific in the study we just did as well, it's those soft skills, the more people-related skills that are going to be needed, rather than the competency-like skills. So it really is, it's truly, truly, truly time to think different. And it's very hard for our industry to do so, because when we look at strengths across the industry, and we do, a lot on strength finders. So when we look at strengths across the industry, especially planners run very high in executing strengths, second relationship. So it's, I'm responsible, I'm accountable, I'm an achiever, I'm going to get stuff done, but those strategic thinking strengths aren't as prevalent. But what happens with the shift with AI is AI isn't something you just check a box, right? There's no exact way to use it. It's super personal, and you need to engage, and you need to be able to live in the gray and not be afraid of that, and know learning in AI is failing until you get it right, until the AI learns you as well. So that is a huge shift. And then also we need to be able to, with AI as well, think about how are we interacting with it, and we're getting the output of it, but we need to think strategically about what that means as well, and be able to analyze what it's telling us, and also make sure it's telling us something that is true.
Right, because you can't just take anything. You have, which is part of that learning.
So the number one thing that we learned in this study, that it isn't like the financial piece of it, that's people aren't going to AI, it's actually lack of understanding. And I sit on an advisory board for the state of California, for the California State University Systems. And it's all the universities, the governor's office, and then industry, and I'm with all tech companies. But in these roundtables, what we talk about is just that. It's how do you train, people want to train on AI. Well, you can't necessarily train on it. You need to train people how to think about it, and then also teach them, right? There's this lack of understanding about what it is, what can it do, where can it apply, what is it good at, what is it not good at. So really in our industry, it's it's showing people like, this is how it thinks, this is what it can do, this is how it can help you. Here's some case studies, and then giving it to people and letting them run with it in the things that they're trying to do and accomplish in their day-to-day work.
Yeah. Yeah, and so if someone wanted a mentorship on AI or soft skills, or wanted to be a mentor and give back, right, which is what you do so well, what advice would you give to them? What is that something that even still works in today's world?
People, it's funny, the study that we do, after you do it, it'll tell you what your AI persona is. So after the first phase of this study, we realized, there's all these different feelings about AI, and people are in different places, right, on their AI journey. So people ask, okay, what do I do now? I took it. This is my, what do I do now? But really, it's that, it's that engagement and playing with it and how it works for you. But I would say, first, you need to understand what you're trying to accomplish, like what can it help you accomplish, or what does your daily work look like? And then take that to someone that might be more experienced in AI and know more, and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, what do you suggest using, right? But it's hard if you want mentorship in AI. You can't go to someone with just a blank slate.
Yeah.
Because people come to me and I say, okay, let's sit down when we have time and talk about what are you actually doing in your day-to-day, and I'll tell you a good place to start where you can see results that give you confidence and make you feel comfortable.
And like you said, it's a way of looking at the world more than it's a
total thought change in the way you think about things and interact in the workplace. So that piece on the actual like AI, touching it, feeling it, using it, right? But the other piece, which, and I've been talking to a lot more companies more broadly about talent and what that looks like and workplace of the future. And it's so surprising, but not. To me, so many more companies are coming to me and leaders are coming to me because they're seeing it now, that there's this huge shift coming, and the reskilling piece of it is so important. But, early in my career, I was working remotely for a large company in this industry, and they were wonderful, but I didn't want to move to where the headquarters was, and it was also very structured, so it didn't work, it didn't work for me, right? But I realized, I'm like, if I want to get ahead, I need to invest in myself, and that's my responsibility. And so often people wait for their companies to take that step for them or tell them what they need to learn, but like, we're responsible for that ourselves.
You're the CEO
right?
of your career.
You are the CEO of your career. So I went to grad school, and that's how I got really into the gig economy, and eventually, how I eventually found it Soundings. But right now, as individuals, I think it's more important than ever to invest in yourself and start with you. Understand, I love strengths, right? Understand yourself. What are you good at? What do you innately bring? What's important to you? Where are you going to be most successful? And do that interwork on yourself, because there's going to be so many different opportunities in the future. And also from, people standpoint, right? As individuals, so much is going to change so quick, and we're going to feel really uncomfortable. And when we feel uncomfortable, then, you see different sides of people, right? Yeah. So there's, I hate to say it, but really when it comes down to it in business, right? Like, how we respond to things under pressure is rooted in past trauma.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand yourself, you're never going, I can teach you competency all day long, you're never going to get to that next step until you go inward. So that's my number one advice to individuals now. If you haven't spent the time to go inward before, either, personal stuff in your life or professional stuff in your life, like, invest in that and go inward, because you need to understand yourself and how you're responding to what's changing, so then you can learn and grow. And then for companies, it's you need to invest in your people right now, and we're going to see a lot of shifts, because what's needed now for certain roles is going to be different. Job descriptions are going to look different. The strengths are going to be different. So we need to invest in our people and understand who are the people for this next phase of our companies and our industry, and how are we going to get them there.
Absolutely. So you've led through so much uncertainty and questioning times. What is your one thing that got you through all of that?
That's a really hard one. Resilience, I would say that's my number one strength that I would challenge most people on. It's about being resilient, and it's about not being afraid to fail. And you're going to mess up, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to be mad at yourself, you're going to be frustrated, but you have to be able to learn from that and continually bounce back, even though it's hard, and take the time you need to process what you need and then get back at it.
You are a fabulous role model for that. Thank you for taking the time here at IMEX America to be on What One Thing. I loved learning more about you. I feel like every time I see you, I learn something. And now I know there's 4 more. There's 4 more Tracy Judges out there.
Okay, here's the real riddle. I have 4 brothers, 4 sisters. I'm my mom's oldest, my dad's youngest. Altogether, I'm in the middle, but I'm an only child.
And that is Tracy in a nutshell.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, JT.
Bye. And welcome back to the What One Thing podcast, a smart meetings pod where we talk to amazing people about what made all the difference in their life and career. And I'm so excited. We are live here at IMEX. I am with Jessie States.
I'm the Vice President of Consulting.
Vice President of Consulting with Meeting Professionals International. And Jessie, I want to know, how did you get your start? When you were in kindergarten, were you standing at the front of the room telling people everything to do?
Absolutely not. I'm going to surprise everyone and let you know that I'm an introvert.
What?
And so that was never my thing. But I've always been a storyteller.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started my career I have a degree in journalism.
Nice.
And so I started my career on actually the media side of the business. And then I moved in, I started to edit all of our white papers. We were doing a lot of research about 15 years ago, millions of dollars of research. And I was editing all of these papers and we just weren't seeing the downloads that we wanted. And I thought, maybe we need to change the narrative and turn these thousands of pages of research into education.
Oh.
And so that's the way people want to consume things. They want to attend sessions, or they want to attend a webinar, or they're at industry events. They don't have the time to read all of this, but how do we distill that into something that's interesting and relevant and gives it context and allows people to talk to their peers about what they are learning? And so that's how I started on the education track, was really kind of taking all of this research and turning it into something that was more meaningful and gave people the context they needed to apply some of the learning.
So really understanding how people absorb information and what it is that they need.
Yes.
And how has that changed over the years? Because you've been doing this for a long time. Do we really have the attention span of a goldfish, or does it just depend on what's in front of them?
It depends on if it's relevant.
Yeah.
And so if we look at the sessions of yesterday, they were all like you were attending some kind of university class.
Yeah.
And there was an instructor at the front of the room, a professor who was telling you things that they knew for an hour or longer. But that's not how people learn, and that's not how they take something and apply it later. And that's why you'll see that education and the ways in which adults learn is different than the ways that children learn. Children, 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, 2 + 2 is 4. Got it. They'll just accept whatever you tell them. But adults are always going to be like, oh, okay, well, what's in it for me? And how do I apply that?
Right.
And they get that context from a different type of educational format. And that's why you're seeing education being delivered in different ways now. And it's the context that's most important, and the peer learning. So the best sessions that you're going to attend, you're going to learn something new.
Right.
And then you're going to work with your peers or other leaders. And you're going to think about how is that meaningful to me and my business? And how do I take this information and use it to do my job better, to enhance my career, or to grow my meetings? And that's this new kind of educational model that you're seeing around the industry.
We love that, especially as Smart Meetings has been kind of shifting to identifying as a community where people are helping each other and they don't need the gatekeeper, they need a platform, right?
Yes. And I've always kind of admired the way that you've done that, particularly with the Smart Women's, you know, I mean, what a great community.
It is.
And what you're doing is you're giving access to peers and connecting individuals and empowering everyone. And that's what we all want as human beings, is to feel empowered and part of something and belonging. And that's what you do so well.
You'll see all the hugs, right? Well, we've been getting lots of hugs here. And what we're seeing, we're on the floor here, and there's different stages all around. Some people have the headsets on, some people don't. There were the keynotes in the morning that were more traditional. We saw that at WEC. Where do you see that education going? Is it lots of big, huge keynotes in ballrooms, or is it more small stages, conversations, campfires? Where's it going?
It's all of those things. And it's allowing individuals to choose their own paths. So you have to have a variety of different formats of delivery. And the best events are going to build. And so you're going to learn something, and then that learning is going to be expanded over the course of a couple of days. And you're going to have different touch points where it's giving you the different context based on what you've learned. One keynote builds on another, and then it's conversation afterwards. Or it's a couple of sessions that build on that experience. But it's the mix that's important, right? And allowing people that opportunity to kind of choose what's best for them.
Giving them agencies, treating them like adults.
100%, yes. That is one of my favorite words, is agency.
Oh, we share that. Yeah. Because I know that I like to be able to choose.
Yes, and not all of us want constant engagement. It's like a dimmer switch. Sometimes I want to sit and learn from somebody and just listen, and then I want to have a conversation. Then I want to workshop that out. What does that actually mean?
Yeah. So are there any glimpses you can give us for what we can expect at the next MPI WEC?
We are just getting started. WEC San Antonio is going to be just...
We love San Antonio. We're bringing a group there this year too, the Monarch. Yeah.
Oh, good. What a great city. And we're what we're doing is we're just really infusing the city into the conference itself, utilizing its focus on people and individuals, but also the fiesta atmosphere,
the culture.
Yes. Yep. What a blend of culture San Antonio has. And more so even than most people realize. Like, what a confluence of different communities settled there and created this really dynamic space and place.
So much history. It's an UNESCO culinary city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're really excited about it. You're going to find that mix of education that we were talking about. You'll be able to do everything from having kind of small group conversations with peers that are meaningful to having kind of those bigger learning moments.
Great. Smart Meetings will be there for all that. And I'm going to guess there'll be plenty of AI. It feels like we're sitting next to the tech zone, and I think every booth says
in the middle of the tech zone.
AI powered.
For those of you who are not here, we are between Asia and technology.
and just to paint the picture more, so Jessie has sparkly earrings and she has little alien socks, and she's the most sparkly introvert I've ever met. So let's get back to the one thing. What is the one thing that made all the difference in Jessie States' life? What is the thing that you do that our community can learn from and apply to their own lives?
I look at everything through a positive, and I accept as many opportunities as I can in a healthy way. I've always leaned into saying yes, again, without overstepping what would be healthy for me.
Right,
but at every moment, you're asking questions, you're inquisitive, you're accepting new opportunities when they come your way, and you're looking at, even when things are tough and hard, you are looking at that as a learning opportunity, and where is that going to lead you next?
Right. And you've done so much for the community by being you, by embracing your authentic self, and we're so grateful for that. Thank you, Jessie, for sharing your What One Thing with the Smart Meetings community. We love seeing you at all of the events.
Yeah, I love seeing you too.
Goodbye from IMEX. Smart Meetings What One Thing was produced by Bright Business Media. Visit smartmeetings.com to subscribe to your daily dose of inspiration.